What if a single modern day Navy SEAL went back in time and took on an entire Roman legion? I've literally thought about this question multiple times because, you know, a single Navy SEAL, like the weapons that they have, like he would have at his disposal, like, would he be enough by himself to take on, like, a legion's got to be at least, what, 1,500 soldiers at least? I mean, the thing is, I would think that if he just opened fire, like the sight of the soldiers, the Roman soldiers just dropping like flies would scare like a bunch of them maybe to run away. But if they all charged at him, man, I don't know if he would be able to survive.
The last thing Lieutenant Jake Havoc Harper remembered before everything went sideways was touching down in eastern Syria. It was supposed to be a routine snatch and grab, a high-value Iranian Quds Force operative meeting with rogue militias. Get in, get out, and drop a JDAM on the site for good measure. But the second their boots hit the ground, everything went sideways. The blinding flash of light, a whirlpool in the sky, a vibrating sensation that washed over his body, then nothing. When Harper came to, his entire squad of Navy SEALs was intact, along with their 4 desert patrol vehicles, weapons, and gear. But their MH-47 Chinook, gone. Their JTAC comms, dead. Their GPS, just a blank screen. Like their squad was wiped off the face of the earth. And then Harper heard a sound he would never forget. Marching. Thousands of boots, moving in perfect unison, and shouting in Latin. "Boss," Chief Petty Officer Ryan Boomer Watts, Harper's explosives expert, whispered into his throat mic as he pointed to the ridge. Harper followed his gaze. His heart stopped. A Roman legion, red, resplendent, and very, very real. In that moment, Harper knew one thing. What was about to unfold would defy history itself.
I mean, it depends on how many rounds he has, doesn't it? It really depends on how many, magazines he has. If he's got a bunch of rounds, like, we're talking hundreds and hundreds, he might just get them to retreat. Like, he probably would.
Could a highly trained U.S. Navy SEAL platoon outmaneuver and overpower an entire Roman legion? Or would sheer numbers and battlefield discipline prove too much? Join us today on the infographic show for the ultimate clash. Navy SEAL platoon versus Roman legion. Who would win? A broad, dry valley stretched between the SEALs and the Roman legion, their crimson banners rippling in the wind. No doubt their scouts had already reported the presence of a strange band of foreigners perched atop the distant ridgeline. Harper's men stood frozen, their disciplined training momentarily overridden by sheer disbelief. They were SEAL Team 7 Alpha Squad, some of the deadliest special operators on the planet. Yet even they weren't prepared for this. Their original mission loadout had been designed for a quick surgical raid, a smash and grab in urban Syria, not all-out war against an ancient empire. They carried M4A1 carbines with suppressors, Mark 48 light machine guns for suppressive fire.
Yeah, I mean, those machine guns are definitely they will be like really key in this because, you could just, the rapid fire, the soldiers would be like, what the hell is this magic? They would think it was like witchcraft or something.
Barrett M82 sniper rifle for long-range interdiction, M9 sidearms, frag grenades, and enough C4 to level a city block. They were geared for rapid movement, close-quarters combat, and asymmetric warfare, not a pitched battle against an ancient army. Yet, here they were, staring down an army of thousands, red-crested helmets bobbing and glinting in the sunlight, iron shields locking into disciplined testudo formations, javelins poised, their tips catching the morning light. There were no comms, no drone support, no quick reaction forces waiting in the wings. That meant no hope of rescue. The SEALs were utterly alone, stranded in an impossible place faced with an impossible enemy. But if any warriors in the modern world were suited for this fight, it was them. The SEALs weren't just killers, they were adapters, survivors, problem solvers. They had fought their way out of ambushes in the Hindu Kush. They survived nightmare insurgent strongholds in Mogadishu, hunted terrorists through cartel tunnels in Colombia. They had operated in environments where the rules of engagement shifted by the second, where the only law was violence and victory. Fine, Harper thought. If Rome wanted a fight, it had just found one. Survival instincts kicked in fast. Without a word, Harper and his men dropped into the prone firing position, using the natural rise of the terrain to give them cover and height. At over a mile out, they were lucky to trade distance for time to assess, plan, and prepare. If the Romans rushed, they'd be cut down before they made it halfway up the hill.
Because this is the thing, the Romans have got to get close for them to do any kind of damage. They've got to get real, like close enough for their like short swords and spears to do damage, whereas the SEALs, they can like be like a mile away and still take somebody out.
If they waited, the SEALs could set up a deadly kill zone, perhaps even an ambush. Smitty the sniper shifted into position, Barrett rifle digging into the dirt as he peered through his scope, his breath slow and controlled. This is a drill, right? His voice was dry, tinged with dark humor, but there was an edge of hope to it, as if the command team might suddenly call it off, as if this was some insane, full-immersion VR exercise cooked up by DARPA. Harper didn't respond. He just scanned the thousands of shield-bearing warriors, their eyes set on the small force atop the ridge. This wasn't a drill. It was history, and SEAL Team 7 was caught smack dab in the middle. Harper gestured at the approaching army. "You ever seen a historical reenactment with actual Romans?" he said, not even believing his own words.
Who's your money on? Who's your money on right now? Make a prediction before, the combat starts. I am going with the SEALs. I think 3 SEALs. If it was just 1, tough. But 3, I think, can get the job done.
Even the SEALs had to admit the Roman legion was a marvelous machine, precise, disciplined, and terrifyingly massive. From their ridge, Harper's men had a perfect vantage to witness its full crushing scale. Over 5,000 men advanced in rigid formation, their red crests bobbing in unison. Golden eagle standards gleamed in the sunlight, and each scutum shield was locked with a man beside him, creating an imposing, unbreakable wall. The front ranks marched with glad eye drawn, short stabbing swords designed for close-quarters slaughter. Meanwhile, the rear ranks hefted pila, deadly throwing javelins that would turn any charge into a killing field. The red crests of centurions bobbed through the ranks, barking orders in clipped, efficient Latin, ensuring flawless coordination. There was no hesitation, no breaking formation, just a calculated, relentless advance. At the center of the force rode Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, garbed in the gleaming steel of a Roman general. His plumed helmet caught the morning light as he observed the battlefield from horseback. Gaius Cassius Longinus, the second in command, rode beside him, scanning the SEAL's strange posture and position with the cold, calculating gaze of a veteran strategist.
Imagine what they must have been thinking. If this were to really happen, looking at the guns, they'd be thinking, "What is that?" They'd have no idea as to what those guns could do.
Harper had read history. These were no amateurs. A Roman legion wasn't just an army. It was a war machine, honed by centuries of conquest. Every legionnaire had been hardened through brutal training, taught to march 20 miles in full armor, to construct fortifications in mere hours, to kill in brutal close-quarters combat without hesitation. They weren't undisciplined rabble. They were highly trained warriors, their tactics tested against the mightiest empires of their time: Greece, Carthage, Gaul. And now their unyielding, disciplined advance was directed at the SEAL team, a small, black-clad group of warriors standing alone in defiance of the Roman war machine. They had never seen rifles, never witnessed four-wheeled chariots capable of impossible speeds, never heard the crack of automatic gunfire. But they had crushed enemies before, and they would do it again. A moment of impossible calm settled over the battlefield. The wind carried nothing but the distant rustle of banners, the soft clinking of iron against iron, as 5,000 men shifted their weight. Harper could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear the slow, measured breaths of his men, prone atop the ridge, weapons trained, fingers hovering just above their triggers, the weight of the moment pressing down like a vice. Then, from the mass of red and steel below, Crassus's voice thundered across the plain. It was the command to advance. The Roman legion surged forward, a wall of shields and bodies, an unstoppable tide of flesh and steel. Their footsteps rumbled like distant thunder.
They're really doing their best to hype up the Roman Empire here, or the Roman legion here. I think we know where this is going. I suspect they're about to get battered by the SEALs, but yeah, because that's the only explanation I can think of as to why they're hyping them up so much.
War cries rising in a guttural ancient chorus. This was what they had done 100 times before: advance, kill, conquer. They had marched across the known world, breaking enemies exactly like this, a smaller force clinging to a pathetic hill, foolish enough to believe the terrain would save them. It never did. Harper had seen what he needed to see. "Smitty, fire a warning shot," he bellowed, his dry voice cracking with a tinge of anxiety. Smitty's 50 cal thundered into life, turning a centurion's head into a fine red mist. Save a few gobsmacked men around him, the surging legion didn't even notice this isolated loss. To the thousands behind him, it was nothing but another casualty of war. "Weapons free," Harper bellowed. Obediently, the Mark 48s opened up, and all hell broke loose. Squad automatic weapons roared, belching a steady stream of lead. Suddenly, the Romans were dying by the dozen. A dozen turned to 50, 50 into 100. The front ranks collapsed in a wet, grisly cascade.
Yeah, honestly, this is only going to end one way. There's just no way they can overcome this. Unless they somehow get close enough. Really, what they should do is do a pincer movement, go around the sides. But they probably don't even, they don't know what they're up against.
As bodies folded backward, their shields splitting like rotten wood. Chainmail and leather offered no protection against the seals' relentless fire. Romans shrieked, staggered, and tipped over corpses, only to be trampled by their own advancing brothers. When the Roman skirmishers had closed enough distance, the M-Force joined in the chorus, hollow points punching through muscle and armor. A young signifier carrying his unit's sacred eagle standard took 2 rounds to the chest and crumpled like a broken marionette. Another officer got hit in the leg, tumbling forward with a howl before being crushed beneath the stampede. For the first time in their history, Romans were fighting an enemy that could kill them from beyond the range of sight. And it terrified them. Some stumbled, eyes wide, looking to their gods, wondering if Jupiter himself had descended upon the ridge.
They must be thinking something really strange is going on here, like it's the end of the world type thing.
Punishing them with thunder and lightning. But discipline was discipline, and Rome did not break. Instead, they kept on coming. Barrels ran white hot, the acrid stench of burning oil and cordite filling the seals' nostrils. Steam and smoke hissed from the overhead chambers, spent casings clattering down the hillside like brass rain. The DPV's mounted guns tore through the ranks of men, ripping bodies in half, turning the slope into a red, seeping mass of flesh. And yet, even as the hill became a graveyard, the Romans kept coming.
Why would they keep coming, though? Surely a smart general or a smart leader would retreat at this point? Because at this point, you're just losing men. You're losing men and you don't know who or what is doing this. Retreat, save the men, re-strategize, and then come back on a later date. Because right now, you're just getting battered. I know that obviously this is a made-up scenario, but that's what a proper general would do, wouldn't they?
Shields locked, feet driving forward. They reached a rocky spur midway up the incline. Bodies tumbled backwards, arms and legs flailing. The Romans clawed, stumbled, and climbed over the growing mountain of the dead. Then, almost without warning, the entire front line had disappeared. The field behind them was a wasteland. Groans and anguished screams filled the air. Limbs twitched, corpses shuddered in the dirt, fingers grasping at wounds that could never be healed. Harper's men slowed their fire, waiting to see if the Romans turned back. Smoke drifted up from their weapons, curling in the morning light. For a long, tense moment, nothing moved. The seals breathed heavily, wiping sweat from their brows, searching for signs of retreat. And then they heard it. The clink, the grind of iron, the sound of shields locking together. The 40% rule is a mantra every SEAL lives by. The idea that when your body screams for rest, when your mind begs you to stop, you're really only 40% spent. SEALs are trained to override pain, fear, and exhaustion, to push past their limits and keep fighting long after a normal man would quit. But as Harper watched the fresh Roman cohort step forward, shields locked, swords drawn, unflinching in the face of certain death, he realized something chilling. The Romans lived by that mantra too. These men had just watched hell unfold. They had seen their brothers fall, their front line obliterated by weapons beyond their comprehension, and yet they did not waver.
It makes no sense, though. You're just going to get mowed. Where is the... I know some people might think that's honorable just to keep going no matter what, but I don't know. Do you see where I'm coming from? Why would you, if you know you're about to get taken out, there's just no way you can beat this opponent. Why would you, in this situation, still go ahead with it?
They did not break. The Legion was just a fighting force. It was an organism, a machine built to endure beyond the limits of human suffering. Harper let out a slow breath, nodding to himself as he slapped a fresh mag into his M4. His men did the same, rolling their shoulders, flexing their fingers, preparing for round 2. The SEALs had never faced an enemy like this, and that made it the best fight of their lives. And with that, the Legion resumed their slow, inevitable march to the top of the hill. "Time to move," Harper shouted. "Fall back to the ruins." The SEALs pile into the DPVs, gunners firing from the roll bars, kicking up dust clouds as they drift across the battlefield. Roman Pila javelins rained down, thudding into the earth where the SEALs once stood and skidding across the dirt. They had escaped in the nick of time. Harper's M203 grenade launchers thumped, lobbing high explosive rounds into the tightly packed Roman ranks as they crested the hilltop. Bodies flew like rag dolls, shields scattered, the air filled with the screams of the men who had never seen, never even imagined modern war. Yet they kept coming. "These guys don't quit," muttered Corpsman Doc Mitchell. reloading his M9 sidearm. "They don't know what quit means," Harper replied grimly. The DPVs ripped through an abandoned outpost, down an old dusty road, an old Parthian fort. The SEALs were fortunate to have their high-speed vehicles. Without them, they would have long expended their ammo. At the ruins, they found a stone wall, some defensive positions, nothing major, but it was elevated, giving them a high ground advantage. Harper ordered his men to set up and stand fast. The SEALs dismounted, setting up a 360-degree defensive perimeter. Smitty took up a position on a crumbling tower with his M82 Barrett, scanning for high-value targets. The Legion halted. A brief calculated pause as they assessed the battlefield. Then their artillery arrived. Smitty couldn't believe his eyes. Through his scope, he saw a line of ballistas, massive wooden siege engines, ancient but deadly.
Okay, I mean, so they had something up their sleeve as well. They had a little trump card up their sleeve. I mean, the thing is, that thing's probably slow to reload, probably not very accurate. Against, the SEALs, it's just, I don't see them, being able to do anything with that.
The same type he had masked for devastating effect in countless strategy games on his old PC. Only this time he wasn't playing. The ballistic crews moved with practiced precision, their motions refined across countless sieges. Harper and his men watched from the crumbling fort ruins, sweat beating down their brows. The massive torsion-powered war engines were wheeled into position just beyond the effective small arms range. These weren't mere catapults, haphazardly lobbing stones. Ballistas were the apex predators of ancient artillery. Each one could launch a 6-foot-long iron-tipped bolt at speeds of around 115 miles per hour, easily impaling a man from head to toe or splitting a wooden shield like paper. A direct hit could pulverize bone, explode organs, or pin a screaming soldier to the wall like a hunting trophy. The Romans knew exactly what they were doing. They had laid siege to entire cities with these machines, shattered enemy morale by turning the air into a storm of spears and iron.
Yeah, but that was cities that didn't have M4s and automatic weapons.
And now those deadly machines were being aimed right at the SEALs and their ruined fort. Harper clenched his jaw. They had a little time. The Legion was advancing. Smitty was low on ammo. The ballistas were taking aim, and soon the sky would be filled with death. But the SEALs had another trick up their sleeve. Boomer's C4 charge, a massive block of plastic explosive carefully hidden beneath a discarded backpack at their previous firing position. It was primed and waiting. Boomer crouched behind cover, his detonator in hand, his eyes locked on the Roman officers gathering near the abandoned ridge. They had seen the destruction, the strange weapons, the fire, and the smoke. Their curiosity got the better of them. A legate knelt down to inspect the bag, gesturing for his tribunes to take a closer look. That's when Boomer grinned. He pressed the trigger. A blinding explosion ripped through the battlefield, erupting like a volcanic shockwave. The ridgeline disintegrated in a flash of fire and rock as Roman limbs launched into the sky. Flaming debris rained down, screams piercing through the dust cloud as high-ranking officers and their orderlies were ripped apart mid-command. The Legion faltered for the first time, and the SEALs smiled. But there were still too many. The reality was undeniable. This was never going to be a fair fight in the long run. A single SEAL squad, no matter how lethal, could only hold out for so long against thousands.
Really though? Really? I don't know if I believe that, especially if you can funnel them in. Like, the movie 300 where the Spartans funneled the Persians into that corridor, the hot gates. If you can funnel them in and just stay on the other side, what can they do? Yeah, they've got the spears. That's true. They've got the spears.
The Legion was built for endurance, a relentless war machine designed to grind down enemies through sheer attrition, sustained by foraging, supply lines, and ironclad organization. The SEALs were trained for surgical strikes, rapid assaults, and swift exfiltration, not a drawn-out war. With limited ammo, no supply chain, and nowhere to retreat.
True, the lack of ammo is the big thing here. Like I said earlier, if they have unlimited ammo, they could win for sure. But yeah, as soon as they run out of ammo, it is good night, sweet prince.
Time was running out. Harper knew it. His men knew it. Every burst of gunfire, every grenade tossed, every squad maneuver was a tick on the clock, winding down to the moment where they'd have to make their move. A strategic withdrawal wasn't defeat, it was survival. And survival was something SEALs excelled at. They would slip into the countryside, vanish into the hills and villages, and regroup. It wouldn't be easy. They were strange men in a strange land. Once the Romans spread word of black-clad warriors wielding thundersticks, it would only be a matter of time before every soldier, every patrol, every citizen was watching for them. But Harper wasn't worried. They'd been ghosts before. They could be ghosts again. Harper was about to give the order to withdraw when he caught a movement on the far horizon, a shimmer of dust and steel rolling across the plain like a storm front of death. His breath hitched. It only took a few seconds to recognize the shape of the onrushing tide, the glint of lamellar armor, the banners snapping in the wind. The Parthians had arrived. The Roman formation was still reeling from the explosion that had eviscerated its core officers, confusion rippling through their ranks. That was when the first shockwave hit, a wall of thundering hooves, fully armed cataphracts crashing into the exposed Roman flank like a tidal wave of bronze. Spears snapped through chainmail, lances punched through men and out the other side. Horses trampled screaming soldiers under their iron-shod hooves. Then came the second wave. Parthian horse archers swept in, their composite bows snapping with deadly precision.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't consider the bows and arrows. Like, if they could quickly, yeah, these will do some damage for sure. Especially if they can see the seals, if they can see where they are. This is a game changer.
As they unleashed clouds of arrows into the chaos, the projectiles found their mark, piercing soft flesh through the gaps in Roman armor. The seals' mouths hung agape. They could hardly believe their luck.
Oh, hold on. They're going after the Romans. Oh, I thought they were teaming up with the Romans and going after the seals. Okay.
Harper watched.
But didn't the Romans also have bows and arrows?
As the battle shifted in real time, the legion had been distracted, drawn away, and broken by the seals' initial assault. In a cruel twist of fate, it had been his team that had unknowingly softened them up for the Parthians. It didn't matter. What mattered was opportunity. "Mount up, we're out of here," Harper yelled. His men didn't take convincing. The DPVs roared to life, kicking up great plumes of dust as the seals spun away from their fortified position. Using the chaos below to cover their retreat, Harper threw one last glance over his shoulder. The legion was collapsing, bodies strewn across the field. Romans fighting desperately to regroup as the Parthians pressed their advantage. And then the seals were gone, vanishing into the desert, their black-clad figures swallowed by the dunes, leaving nothing but scattered shell casings and smoldering wreckage in their wake. You ever think about what'll happen when historians find those Roman corpses full of 5.56? Harper laughed as the desert whipped his face. Boomer and Smitty grinned too. Guess we just gave some archaeologists a real bad day. Could the seals have won outright? No. A squad versus thousands is unsustainable. The legion was built for endurance. The seals were built for rapid, precise engagements. Could the seals survive long term? Doubtful. Their presence would become a myth. Their faces immortalized in rumor. Rome's vast network of spies, scouts, and informants would hunt them down. Unlike the Parthians, American SEALs couldn't simply disappear into the crowd. In the end, the SEALs won the fight, but they couldn't win the war. A modern special operations team, no matter how lethal, is still bound by logistics. History belonged to the armies that could endure, resupply, and outlast. And Rome had plenty of time. Would modern firepower...
Great video, great video. Maybe I underestimated the Romans. I think the point the narrator made about how, armies like legions of that size are built for endurance, whereas the SEALs are more of like a tactical, quick in, quick out unit is a good point. Like, I do think though, if they had a steady supply of ammo, like if they had, let's say, a massive trunk of bullets, I do think they could probably win, assuming they could get to a position of altitude. Like if they could get the high ground and then they're just picking them off from that upward position, I think they could win. Let me know if you guys disagree, but yeah, as soon as they ran out of ammo, it would be really, really difficult to win. I mean, pretty much impossible, but I do think the ammo is the key here. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.